FBI agent!
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Say hello to my little friend!
Can you dig it?
Welcome everybody. We have a very special guest, Jef Groff, amazing car guy, an amazing bike guy, and just an overall cool stunt man. Welcome, Jef.
Welcome. Hey, thank you.
It's been a while that we actually had a chance to kind of catch up, and I'm glad that we did at the Taurus Awards. And before we even get into the good milky stuff, I wanted to find out a little bit of your background when you were a kid. Did you grow up here in California?
I did not know. I grew up in upstate New York, where there's lots of water and green grass and trees and lots of land to just have fun with. So that's kind of where I got my first reckless career started.
What kind of things were you doing back there?
Well, my grandparents had a nice sized house that was right next to a farm, and I mean, they had a farm
environment.
Yeah, they had a farm, like a field car. So I started driving like before I was 10, just in the fields, just mashing around with all the neighborhood kids and wrecking and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And then my dad made the mistake of getting me a three-wheeler when I was 5 and started mobbing those things around, a little ATC 110. And then from there it just kept going. I was racing motocross at 8. And
were you really?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I was going to ask you. I asked Antal this.
Yeah.
I had a BMX question. He said, Groff.
Yeah.
Did you do that as well?
Yeah, I did BMX. I started racing BMX when I was like 12, 13-ish, and then won my first national champs. I went to Secaucus, New Jersey, and won the East Coast Nationals. Well, I don't know if I can't really remember, but I don't think it was East Coast Nationals, but it was the Nationals for whatever, the American, ABA that I was in at the time. And I did that when I was 15. And so from there, when I turned 16, it kind of just, bikes weren't cool anymore, man. I had my permit, and I got my permit when I was 15 for my street bike, and it was all over after that.
You hear that, folks?
Yeah.
2, 3, or 4 wheels. This man dominates, and he started at a very early age. I remember those ATCs because that's when they were bitching about flipping over.
Yeah, they got it banned. Like California, banned them, and so Honda pulled the plug on the sale, and then they kind of just started dying off. But you still see them around. I still see them in random people's yards and stuff as lawn ornaments.
Sure. Let me ask you something. Based on the 2, 3, 4 wheels,
yeah,
I imagine your balance must be like unbelievable.
Well, I mean, I don't really like to toot my own horn because I learned a valuable lesson in that. But I was really blessed and very thankful that God gave me an amazing balance. I went to a motorcycle shop one time. We had growing up, I was very blessed. We had a lake property, and there was a dealership that was like real close by, and we were going in to get like our boat engine serviced or something. And I just would go in the showroom, and I would just go on each bike and sit on it, and I could balance the bike, and just in the showroom without the kickstand down or anything. And the showroom guy, the dealer, said to my mom, he's like, "You need to get that kid into racing." And this was when I was like 5 or so.
No kidding.
And so sure enough, they got me my first bike when I was, first dirt bike when I was like 7, and I started racing when I was 8. And it was amazing. I loved it. I had a good balance. I was riding a bike without training wheels when I was 2.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, that's part of it. Like, obviously I'm not a big time rider like yourself, but balance is part of it. There's other dynamics that come into play as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Bike skill and bike mentality take a lot. I mean, really anybody can get on a bike and ride. I mean, it's just, how your brain processes everything. And for mine, I instantly think, what's the fastest route? What's the easiest way to, maneuver around something or get through a situation? And it might, for one person, it might look to the far left, and one person might look to the far right. But, maybe for me, it's cutting it right through the middle, and that might be up a mountain, over a hill, and down a tree or whatever. You know what I mean? It's how your brain processes it. But to effectively ride a motorcycle well, it's balance, it's motor skill. I didn't play a lot of video games or anything growing up. I was out in my dirt pile mashing, matchbox cars around and doing stuff that, boys do. But today, you see a lot of, video gamers and stuff like that. And I think for me, I was hands-on and in the garage. If my bike wasn't running, I was tearing it apart, trying to figure out how to make it faster.
Man, I can go in so many different directions with that, and that's a real good foundational piece here. And I guess, I was looking at your reel yesterday.
Sure,
and
sure.
Let me tell the audience here, Jef is really low-key. I know through probably a half a dozen people through the community, high-level guys, I ask about motorcycles, and the first word is Groff. Groff.
That's awesome.
That's
a huge blessing.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've obviously earned that. I had a meeting with Antal.
Yeah.
I had this pitch. I think I told you this when we talked last week, where I wanted to hit this auto manufacturer. I said I had this idea, and I want to have a guy kind of ride by the motorcycle. I know I want you in there. And he just looked at me, Groff. He goes, you need a guy on one wheel shooting a machine gun? I'm like, my eyes are popping out. I'm going, yeah, that's what I want. He just said Groff. So he's very modest, and as you can see, he's obviously had this right from the get-go. And the second part here is the idea of pulling the bikes apart. So now you're familiar with it on a mechanical level.
Sure.
How did that enhance your skills?
Basically anything that you do, the better you understand how it works, the better you can be with it. Just like camera equipment, if you know how it works and how it functions, you can use it better, or anything that you do, like computers or whatever. I mean, if you know how it functions, what does what, you can tap into the performance of it. And I've kind of, as I've gotten older, kind of gotten away from more of the mechanical stuff. I've been blessed to have like a crew and people that are, take care of some of my stuff and parts and things like that for me. So it's allowed me just to focus either on my riding or, tricks, or now, racing cars and being able to just focus on competing and winning. But I definitely do understand what does what, because if I hear a noise and it doesn't sound right, or the revs don't match up with, where I'm at, I can kind of figure out that the bike's not running right, or the car's not running right, or something's a little off. So that tells me a huge deal, with how to either, like if I'm on set and I have to make a shot work and I know something's not working properly.
That's a great point, because your life's on the line, because now you're playing for keeps.
Yeah, for sure. And so I have to know, like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it a little bit different and still get the shot and still win and still walk and go home.
Right. No, that's an interesting point. Like, obviously, it's major. You're wise enough to speak up, go, look, and I think people will have that respect towards you. Like, well, if Jeff's saying that's that. But again, like you said, you can work around it.
Yeah, you just...
you think that's the experience level? Like, you can almost have like a loose chain and knobs missing and still pull it off if it's an easy stunt, versus one where you have to do something crazy?
I don't really think that the difficulty level, I mean, because I've been forced to ride some pretty gnarly bikes that you'd probably be like, does that thing even run? And so I don't know, you kind of, I think the adrenaline sets in too, when you hear action, and then it just comes down to your skill. I think a lot of it has to do with you as a professional athlete, performer, stunt person, has to be able to tap into your natural skill and your ability. Because, you look at, like, let's take, for example, professional supercross racing. You have Ryan Dungey, somebody who works extremely, extremely hard to win. And, sometimes he has it, sometimes he doesn't. And then you have people like, let's say, like James Bubba Stewart, who just has a natural God-given ability to just ride fast, and for him, winning's easy. So you have somebody who has to work really hard to be where they are, and you have somebody who has to not necessarily work as hard to win.
Talent, yeah.
So that's what I'm getting at, is the natural side of it. Either somebody that might have the natural talent is able to exceed, and just tap into that and be able to, like, okay, I know this, I'm experienced with this, I know how to make this work and get the shot done, but also be able to use crappy stuff and just do amazing things with it.
Sure. I mean, obviously, once you get up to the, I've heard this before, you get up to the Fast and Furious and the Bond stuff, and it's like you get to play, like unlimited budgets.
Yeah, because
go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been blessed to work on shows where you've had amazing equipment and you get the pick of the litter. But then I've also, because I mean, a job is a job. I don't care if it's $100 or if it's $1 million. The fact of the matter is that this is what I do for work, and I love what I do, and I will do it until I can't do it any longer. So if I can have fun with it, and have fun with a great $1 million bike, I should be able to do the same thing with a $200 bike, if you have the skill. Sure. That's how I believe.
No, I've heard some stories about, like you've taken other people's bike and like it's their bike, they've had it for years, and then you start doing tricks, and obviously there's natural talent there as well, but you've worked hard at it. So, you mentioned you get your permit at 15 and you're doing your BMXing. What was the gap between there before you got in stunts? Or did you go to another level? Like,
Yeah.
Where'd you go after that?
So, believe it or not, like the whole bike two-wheel thing was really big. I grew up, obviously, like I said, in New York, and so winter was a huge deal, and I grew up in a family that went skiing a lot, and so skiing was a huge part of our life.
Where were you in upstate New York?
So do you know where Kingston is? It's like outside the city, probably an hour and a half. So we had a place there. So the Catskills and the Adirondacks.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So in the wintertime, we would go to the Adirondacks and we'd go skiing. Our family had a cabin there, and
Nice.
And then there's local mountains and stuff that are like within an hour and a half. But I was born and raised in a town called Horseheads, believe it or not.
I was just in Ithaca, New York last.
Ithaca's very close to Horseheads in Elmira. Have family that are there, actually.
Nice.
So, but yeah, man, we'd go, and so I started snowboarding when I was, I think, 12. I got my first snowboard, and then I just fell in love with it, and started competing when I was 13, 14. Started getting sponsorships.
Competing on that too.
Yeah, started getting sponsorships. Got a board manufacturer sponsor, and then I went pro when I was 16 in snowboarding, and just started traveling around and doing the competitions all over the country, and doing the USASA competitions, which is the United States Amateur Snowboarding Association. Went and I won our local region in like the upper east quarter of the United States, and then we all converged at the national in Colorado every year, and then just competed. Spent the summers in Mount Hood, Oregon, training all summer and just doing gnarly, amazing stuff. So it was a great time in my life, and then
Sure.
From there just kept going. So my love of things on wheels and snow and stuff just kept growing, and then I'm like, man, I probably should do something smarter. Went to college and still competed in snowboarding on the side.
What did you take in college?
Believe it or not, I wanted I had this part of my life that as I grew up, we were a pretty spiritual family, and I felt like I was called to the ministry, as like gnarly and kind of crazy as I am on the left-hand side of, and then like I had like the grounding part of me that was just like, man, I probably should do something a little bit more meaningful with my life.
Sure.
And so
that's a good foundation, because obviously when you come to Hollywood and LA, a
anything
lot of that
goes.
stuff kind of disappears.
Yeah, for sure disappears, but anything goes.
Yeah.
So like I definitely have a good foundation, and I went to a Christian college out here in California, and believe it or not, man, I thought stuntmen, like I thought it wasn't a paid job. I thought it was for fun. I didn't even I literally, honest to God, I researched it when I was younger. Me and my buddy, who we mashed cars all the time, just like on snowy roads and stuff, we steal our parents' cars. So we were Googling.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah. So we I call it Google, but so when AOL dial-up came out, we were on the internet stuntman job, and then we found that there was some schools or whatever that you could go to learn how to quote unquote be a stuntman.
Okay.
Not that any school can teach you how to be a stuntman.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, so, and they showed pictures of guys jumping out of buildings on fire and stuff. I'm like, man, dude, how awesome is that? These guys get to do this stuff. And we're like, oh, well, that's, you don't get paid to do that, so that's not really anything you kind of want to go into. So I literally put it out of my mind. Didn't even think it was a job. I didn't know it was a profession. I come out, and we're talking early 2000s. I'm in California, going to school, and a friend was going through a hard time. I kind of brought him back to, where he was, and I kind of like spiritually, reconnected him with, where he wanted to go in life. And so he was part of this home away from home program with this soccer team, because I did soccer too. And the family that was his host family was this good Christian family, and the mother was agent at a big agency here in LA.
Oh wow!
And so she's just like, he's like, tell me about, what do you do? And she's like, so you surf, you snowboard, you play soccer, you ride motorcycles, you're into cars, and, you're not that bad of a looking guy. She's like, you ever think about letting your face make you some money until you figure out what you want to do in life? I was like, yeah, sure. So then one thing started happening after another. It was like, she brought me into the agency, and they were like, oh yeah, well, we can give you a modeling contract, and we could send you out for commercials, and the sports and stunt department were definitely interested in you and wanted to sign. So I literally walked out with like 4 contracts. And I'm like, and she's just like, that never happens. People wait months, if not years, and send their headshots in, and they never get a reply, and you just walk out with it. And so I was like, it was a total
golden child.
It was like, yeah, it was a total blessing. Like, I wasn't expecting it, and obviously, if it wasn't from her, like, it wouldn't have happened. So it was all meant to be.
Well, it's kind of like payback. You're helping out her kid, and she's helping you out. Now, it's not like that was the intention, but it worked itself out.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't her kid. It was this kid that they were hosting.
Oh, hosting.
Yeah,
that's right.
So,
right.
So it wasn't even her family.
Wow.
And so it was just like a favor. She was like, I'm bringing you in. I don't have anything to do with it. And I was like,
nice.
So then it started from there, and so I kind of started being around some stunt people, and then luckily I started doing some I was helping out this family with their kids and doing some electrical stuff in their house. And it was a stunt guy. He was a big rigger. And he was just like, hey, I know some of the guys that run the Waterworld show, if you're interested in auditioning for that.
Why don't you tell us where the Waterworld show was or is?
So it's at the Universal Studios Hollywood here, and it's
that was the theme back then.
Yeah, but it's still going.
It still exists.
It's the world's most popular and highest attendance live stunt show in the world.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's still. I mean, the movie bombed. Kevin Costner was amazing in it. Unfortunately, nobody liked it, but the live stunt show is amazing, and people come from all over the world to see it. I mean, Universal Studios still has it going.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, at their pools up there on the hill.
Right on. And what were you doing on that show?
So I played the Mariner, the lead role. I played Kevin Costner's part. I did that. I also did the Deacon double, which is position number 4 as a fire diver. And so basically the first part of the show, I'm like an atoller in the movie scenario. I rappel off of this tower, and I say, like, the bad guys are coming, and like, arm ourselves, and we just run around. And then next thing you know, I'm up there trying to kung fu a guy, and I get pushed into a toxic pit, and then I come out as the double for the stunt double for the Deacon.
Nice.
And then we do a huge sword fight, and then I get lit on fire, and then I fall 45 feet into the water.
So it sounds like this is where you cut your chops and took your lumps and met with other stunt people.
Exactly, yeah. You learn some fighting skills, and basically did all the stuff that you would do on set, but you got to do it in front of a live crowd, which is, if you made a mistake, they can see it. So you had to learn how to keep going, and that's helped me greatly on camera, because if you miss a beat in a fight move, or you miss something, doing a motorcycle thing, you got to learn how to obviously keep it going so that the camera can't tell.
Not only that, I think the other part of it too is I know some people have done those shows. I don't know if any of them is doing it anymore. I don't think you guys are making that much money, but
oh no, for sure you're not making
But it's like you got your hours in. It's like there was a young stunt man. He was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that Marvel show. I'm like, look, just go out there. You'll get other opportunities. You'll have other buddies. but now you're going to have your hours in. So when you're standing in front of a stunt coordinator,
Yeah.
like you're going to have that confidence.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only that confidence, but it's also, it's like I have the skills that you need to do
Sure.
your show. So it's like now I'm valuable, you know? So that's kind of the big thing. It's because you can come out to Hollywood and wish and pray and hope that you can be a stunt person, but until you have credits or skills or you're valuable to somebody, you're nothing.
Right. And that's, yeah, I mean, this is just a busy city and there's going to be 100 guys, but if you can do it on camera as well, plus the skill set. So that's great, Jeff. Where did you go from there?
So basically from there is you know, I was at Waterworld doing the live stunt show, and I just kept auditioning and basically
As an actor or for stunt guy now?
so just transitioning into stunts, I realized obviously stuntman is a job, and hearing
Right.
the stories and knowing what these guys are doing. Basically from there, I was lucky enough to go to an Emmy party for some stunt coordinators that got nominated. And Norm Hall saw me and said, "Oh man, you look great for a part that I need for my show." And I got Taft Hartley'd July of 2006 as an extreme sports athlete, and I just had to perform a fake base jump off of the downtown U.S. Bank building, and it was like a 60-foot fall into an airbag, and that's how I got my SAG card. And from there, I'm eternally grateful to Norm Hall, and he hired me again, doing another deal on the same show. And so from there, I just kept going, and, you know, guys started hiring me. And yeah, so kind of from that, like, I had a break in stunts and stuff for a while. And I just kept going with the whole motorcycle thing. I just really kind of pursued the whole trick side of it.
Was that really in at that time, or just something where your direction was just going?
Well, so I didn't know. Like, I was running a wakeboarding school in Washington State in the summer times, and I would go up there, and then I got really sick at this one point, and I needed to kind of just get a bunch of take it easy, get a bunch of stuff done. And so I went back home to where my mom was living and my family in Florida at the time, and ended up meeting this girl who I thought I was going to marry, and that was a long story. But and so I just kind of like quit everything I was doing, and, you know, stopped kind of doing the whole motorcycle thing and everything. Right. And then lo and behold, luckily enough, I was smart enough to come back to California because I knew I had to finish school so I could get a normal job.
Right.
And that's kind of like when everything just reignited in my life. I just, like, my passion for snowboarding, my passion for street bikes and tricking and all that stuff just kind of heightened and kind of probably covered up a lot of the emotional anguish and stuff I was going through from dealing with a, you know, long-term or long-distance relationship and all that garbage. But yeah, and so that's kind of like where I hit full throttle with all that stuff, and got a bunch of sponsors for street bike stuff, and then my skill just kind of took me to, you know, doing live street bike stunt shows. And then it also brought me into connection with Jason Britton and doing the TV show Superbikes.
Oh, you worked with him on that?
Yep.
Oh, wow. I've talked to him a couple of times. Real nice guy. And that's right. Now I remember Lane saying that they used to do those shows, and I think that somehow it was squeezed a little bit, and then I guess everyone was doing it, and I guess the finances weren't always the greatest after that.
Man, it's like, you know, some street bike stuff is just like, it's super gnarly. I mean, you're talking about guys that are risking their life for nothing but street credit. Like, that's literally 98% of these guys are just like, they just want to be recognized in their club as, you know, hardcore dudes that are doing stuff on the streets illegally and all this stuff. And so that's how I first started. I mean, I got my bike impounded, you know, went to jail, was in the back of a cop car several times, because, dude, that stuff is illegal. You know, you get felony evasion, you run from the cops. I mean, that's on your record forever. You know, good luck getting car insurance later in life.
Yeah, right.
And it's not cool. So I was like, man, I got to do something different. And so I basically, the next bike I got, I just didn't register it, and, you know, I trailed her around in my truck and would go to, you know, abandoned parking lots and found crews of guys or whatever. And so took it off of the streets and doing the whole club thing, riding with the Rough Riders and all that stuff from when I started to then just being what they call a lot guy or a lot rat, and just practicing in the parking lot and just getting like real technical tricks, doing all the circle wheelies, combination stuff, jumping all over the bike, to all the nose, riding the front tire, stoppies, all that jazz.
I watched your reel yesterday, and it was just like the first impression I get is that you're just playing.
Yeah.
Like I was doing something with Timmons, and we were doing something with the toy cars, and you were doing something more efficiently and fun with the motorcycle as I was playing with the toy car. I mean, I just thought that was just incredible. You're at that level where you're just playing, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's natural. It's like you learn that stuff. So a lot of that stuff that I have is just like the stuff that, you can do on a spot, on a dime, anytime, anywhere. If
you were to tell like a young up-and-coming potential stuntman.
Sure.
How many hundreds, if not thousands of hours have you put into this to get to the point where you're very confident talking to me about it in a modest fashion?
Well, I mean, I'm 34 years old now. So if you break down that into hours, the first, I would say from the time that I was 16, 15, when I had my permit license, riding a motorcycle every day to school, just learning. It takes a long time, man. It really does.
I think you're well beyond your 10,000 hours. You're probably...
Yeah, I don't know what it breaks down to, like, 24 hours in a day to, actually, so let's just say 8 hours in a day times 365 days a year times 34. So, maybe let's just do 20. So I don't know.
Lots of practice, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot, but now, if you're like really aspiring to be a stuntman, I mean, you have to have something that you're going to bring to the table, because there's stunt department, stunt crew, stunt whatever teams that you want to be a part of, from martial arts to fire to high falls, car work, motorcycle work. It's over inundated. There's way more guys than there are jobs, But granted, everybody needs a fresh face, My biggest thing that I can say to anybody is that if you want to be in stunts, like, you have to offer something to the table. You have to bring something to the party. And if there's guys that are already good riding motorcycles, that are already been in the business, they're going to get the job.
Sure.
So you can't like look down and be like, oh man, I should have got that job, because that's how I was. But I didn't know anything about stunts. I didn't know how it operated. I didn't know how much of it, like, fraternity it is. And I didn't know really anything about it until years of being in it and being embraced and experienced and, going through the whole ranks and kind of understanding that. And I still have a ton to learn. But, if you're not a champion in something or well-versed enough that you have really good reputation, it's going to be almost impossible to be like a successful person nowadays.
So just work hard at it, people, and that's the least you need to do.
Yeah, at least I would emphasize on the least you need to do. Because I mean, basically, you're really a professional athlete. That's at like the highest tier.
That brings us to a good question. I didn't even think I was going to bring this up, but based on your reputation, I mean, I think I've seen you fool around twice, maybe at lanes with a bike. I don't even think that you were even truly playing compared to what I saw yesterday. But my confidence level now goes through the roof. We got this guy, I don't have any tension. I'm going to sleep better that night.
Sure, yeah.
It makes a world of difference. When you're unsure, it will permeate.
Yeah.
And of course, the producer may pick up on that, and you can only sell so much,
I got a good story about that.
Nice.
So I was working for Tom Elliott last year on Criminal Minds, and I was doubling this guy called his name was Todd Sashwick. He's a good actor. He's been in lots of stuff, and I was doubling him. And Tom originally thought it was like a day or two of work, and I think it ended up being like 3 or 4 days of work. He didn't know that there was all this other stuff. So this one night he woke up in the middle of the night and was just like, "Oh crap, Jeff's got to drive a car." Doubling this guy, he's like, "I don't even know if Jeff can drive." And so like, he was panicked, just like you said, in the middle of the night. Tom Elliott is a major player in the Stuntmen's Association. Used to be president.
Wow.
Stunts Unlimited.
Okay.
Excuse me. Stunts Unlimited used to be president of Stunts Unlimited.
That's big time.
And I mean, just phenomenal, phenomenal dude, awesome guy, extremely talented, running a major network TV show. And it was just like, he has this double and he's worried, oh crap, this guy has to drive. I don't even know if he can drive. So then, like, as we were talking and he asked me, he's like, hey, can you drive? And he found out, I'm competing drifting in the whole Formula Drift series and all that stuff. He was like, you could instantly see
a blowdown.
Just like the whole comfort come back to him, being like, okay, man. Just like, man, because now I went from being like, oh crap, do I got to get another double to drive because I don't know if this guy can drive. And so that's the thing. Like, if you don't come to the table bringing something, there's 9,000 other stunt players that can most likely do it already.
Sure, and I was just the point I was emphasizing. If I'm going to try to, I'm working at an ad agency and I'm pitching something, I need to know that my guy can do this. There's no reservation when I'm talking to him. Well, this is the guy. He can pull this off. He can do it blindfolded.
Sure.
There's just that much more confidence. It's like, and I was talking to my gal about this, that I can tell with different people's attitude towards confidence, like yours, Antal, Garrett's, Jeremy's.
Sure.
And how it comes across, people pick up on that.
Sure.
And I have to, if I'm the focal point, it kind of all comes together. And that sort of brings me to like the next point, that I have to say I was embarrassed. Like you were telling me, yeah, dude, I've been like driving since I've been 10. But I just knew you as a bike guy, and that was just in my head. Like, so even amongst us, or maybe I can't speak for everyone else, you end up typecasting the guy because he's so damn good.
Right.
And you're forgetting about you have these other skills, and that, as we talked about there the other day, and I guess with Antal as well, you have to have all these sets of skill, because now you just made Tom look like a superstar.
Sure. Well, but I mean, he definitely didn't have that reservation when he was in front of the producers and director being like, oh man, can this guy get the shot, So, I mean, it wasn't anything super complicated,
right,
but in the scene. But if it was, then I mean, it just would have took him being like, oh man, okay, went from worried to, oh, now like, okay, I have confidence and our day is going to be fine. We're going to get the shots we need.
But I actually want to stress this too, because now the DP, he might like, well, no, he missed his mark. Oh, now you're getting like 10 shots, hit your mark. Now the editor doesn't know what to pick. The producer's starting to see something a little bit off. Maybe you end up hitting a post or a Jenny close by, and it starts going the other way. But like you said, these guys at a very high level, so
yeah,
I think it all kind of comes together, and that's where stunts, and that's one little cog, but it does affect like
the whole picture,
the whole scheme of things. I mean, I guess we don't really need to talk about what's happened on Furious 7, but let's just face it, that movie
brought a lot of attention.
And I mean, where do we go from here on that?
I don't know. You can go a lot of different ways.
Let's just say the industry, it's like stunt world, it seems like they're the redheaded stepchild, but yet pretty much every stunt coordinator I know of has dealt with NASA. It's like these things are very high level, and it's a precision, it's an art, it's a science.
Yes.
And look what Jeff's been saying here for the last half an hour. This isn't something he was sitting around gaming, eating cashews. He was working his ass off. So you guys can see that really cool shot in a TV show or a movie.
Yeah, I definitely feel, I think we're undervalued by the total, production scheme of things as a stunt player. I think that our value on some shows, don't get me wrong, some shows do value stunt people as just as much as the lead actor. Like, hey, stunts is in, let's make sure that everything is flowing properly. But then there's also, productions that, treat you just like your background or that you don't really matter, and you're just in as, basically backing up the main cast. So, I think that there's obviously room to grow in that, and I think to keep it less political, because I don't know everything.
Sure.
I just know that, I think we could be valued better amongst the Emmy category and also the Oscars, you know, viewing stunts as a major player, because if stunts wasn't there, that movie would have never been nominated, you know, if it's an action film, you know, or whoever the lead stars of the show would, like, they would look like turd buckets if it wasn't for, you know, their stunt doubles or their stunt team that's behind them, you know, rigging them up and keeping them safe and making them look like the amazing athletes that they're most likely not, because there's a really big majority of actors that are extremely uncoordinated besides saying lines.
You know, they look good. They just don't. Like, the coordination is actually the key. I mean,
exactly.
You went to the Taurus Awards. You saw the rigging. I mean, that's amazing stuff. There's no.
Yeah.
Well, we won't go down that road, but I mean, that choreography and the coordinating and the sync of all that. I mean, it's a moving piece at high speeds, and everyone has to be in sync.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's amazing actors that are extremely talented.
Of course.
And, I've been blessed to double some, and it makes my job easy because I don't have to do a lot of it. But still, I mean, there's a big portion of it that stunts is responsible for, and we make it happen. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't be acknowledged, at least, you know. And that's the least of it, is just the acknowledgement, and the fact that is not there. So anyhow, I mean, we can.
That's fine. I mean, yeah. Well, we can lighten up a little bit, but I mean, I appreciate your point of view, and I've, you know, wearing a lot of different hats and being a lot of different departments. You have different points of view, and there's something you can't really escape in this business is politics. But it's kind of funny, like, do you think that your background as being you were kind of one of the original extreme guys, you know, do you think that kind of helped you as a platform dealing with personalities and people?
I think definitely for stunts, there's no I in team, and you really realize as you continue to evolve as a stunt performer, as a major action person, your stunt is only as good as the team that you're surrounded by, you know. And so I wouldn't feel comfortable doing something if I didn't know the guys that were setting it up.
Absolutely.
So I believe that you definitely have to, like, because there's a lot of people that get into stunts, or a lot of people that I've met, you know, that think like, oh, it's just you're the guy that's falling out of the building on fire or whatever. Yes, it is, but there's a whole team behind you that's setting you up, that's making sure your gear's there, that's making sure that the gear's prepped properly, you know, setting up the air, whatever. I mean, there's a whole list depending upon the gag that you're doing. But there's also a part of it that is relying on you as your talent and your, you know, performance to get the job done. But still, it's a whole team. And so you have to realize your stunt is only going to look as good as the team. I mean, that's including the camera guy. That's everything, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that just goes to show you, you know, that you're working with other departments and you have to be professional for all of them.
Right. And so you have to be, for me, it's like, it's easier to be a nice guy than to be a jerk, you know, because you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, nobody likes being around a jerk and somebody that's hard to deal with.
The doors will start closing.
Yeah. Well, not like closing, but it's like, unless you got a lot of money, nobody wants to be around you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a jerk. So.
That's cool. Let's lighten it up here a little bit. Let's talk about your influences. Like, you have some movies that, you know, that sort of gave you that idea of becoming a stunt man. Is there anything that kind of just grabbed you?
Man, I tell you what, like, all the old school, like, I grew up watching Knight Rider, A-Team, Nighthawk, just like, you know, my dad and I watched MASH and stuff, like, just like the original Hollywood, Dukes of Hazzard, like that stuff, like that was me. Like, that was who I was like, oh, man, dude, I want to be part of the A-Team. It's B.A. Baracus, man. Like, it was
right on.
Like, legit. And then I tell you what, like, my favorite movie of all time is Point Break. Just robbing banks and driving fast and cruising the world, surfing, doing fun things, skydiving. Like, that's my, like, in my head, that's how I live my life, you know. I'm really blessed, and I'm really grounded, and I definitely, I'm a believer. I love the Lord, and I'm not really a bank robber, but, like, in my head, like, it's just that it's that carefree lifestyle, like, oh, you know, do whatever you it's more of a dream. It's like the dream Like, you have passions and you have the opportunity to make it a reality. And so that's what I do. I dream, you know, I'm like, oh, that'd be so rad to do that. And so it's like, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'd rather go and give something my all and fail than be like, gosh, I wonder if I would have ever been that or been good at that or done, you know.
Listen to what he's saying, guys and gals. Like, you much rather just repeat that again, Jeff.
So I'd rather go out and give my all and fail at something than to live with the regret or possibly know that, like, man, if I wondered, because that, like, always sits in the back of your head,
Sure.
you know?
Be an old man.
Yeah. And I can't thank my wife and family enough, because it's like she allows me to do what I do.
Sure.
So I rely on her to just handle a lot of things at home so that I can pursue these things, and, you know, racing now and stuff like that. And that's basically a full-time job in and of itself, outside of my full-time job as a stunt, you know, performer. So I really get to do a lot more than a normal 9-to-5 guy would ever dream that is possible.
That's amazing. Did you know that I asked that same question to Anton, and he said, like, the Jackie Chan police story and then Point Break?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
I was a little surprised, and I'm like, well, now you're saying it. I'm like,
dude, no, my cousin and I, Jonathan, he was so funny. Like, every time we talk, it's like we always say a line from Point Break. It's it's like, we are the dead presidents, and I'm not a crook. And so,
right on.
there's just these little things, but I mean, we just our growing up, our childhood, and like, he lived out in California, I lived in New York, and then we came together every summer in our lake house and as a family, and
Good memories.
Yeah, I just did all these crazy things, like, you know, mobbing our dirt bikes in the backyard and jumping, you know, off the boat at full speed and stuff like that. Like, that's the thing that, like, make you into who you are as an adult. Like, those memories and experiences form you. And so, like, Point Break was like, oh, dude, this is a reality. Like, we could go and do this and jump out of planes and rob banks and stuff. And so the funny thing is that they just remade Point Break.
I was just, the trailer was released like a couple of days ago. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. But Mick Rogers, you know, did it.
Oh,
and
really?
Riley and Riley Harper and Oakley Lehman and
I'm with you on this. Like, Point Break was a pivotal movie.
Yeah.
It launched Keanu's career.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie too, and it was done practically, as you know.
Yeah.
And
it employed a lot of stunt people in LA. It was a big, heavy.
I'm sure.
movie.
Well, oddly enough, remember when I called you? I was at Neptune's, and
Yeah.
that's where he goes in and he's chasing that gal, and I'm like, wow, this is really. You still kind of get off on that because it's part of your past. And so I looked at the trailer. I kind of have in the back of my head, like, no, dude, the classic's the best. The classic's the best. I looked at it. I was like, ooh, this is pretty impressive. But there is a lot of CGI, I could tell.
Well, I know that it was made for, it was, from what I heard, and I don't know how accurate it is, I do know that it was funded and made by, like, a foreign company. And so they bought I think the rights to it.
Oh, wow.
To maybe that franchise or whatever. But, or I don't know if, I mean, it's not a franchise, but they bought the rights to it or whatever because they did it all overseas. It was all done in.
No kidding.
None of it was done here, and was all in, like Germany and stuff.
Okay.
And Austria and things like that.
You mean you're talking about the visual effects and CGI work?
Well, just the movie was shot over there.
You're kidding me.
No.
Oh, I guess because, I see, right, because you haven't seen the trailer.
No.
But, you know, like, as you know, the originals, like, surfers, these guys are all extreme guys.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny you were, telling me your background, you hadn't seen the trailer. I'm like, dude, you're...
This
is Jeff.
Yeah, as soon as I leave here, I'm gonna. But it's funny because they're all like the legit, Brand X guys that do all that stuff. So it should be amazing. The action should be amazing.
It was impressive. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be a hard ass, and I love the classic, but I mean, I was impressed, and obviously we'll have to wait till it releases, which won't be until the end of the year. So.
Oh wow.
But it is exciting. So so you had those TV shows. Were there any other influences? It doesn't necessarily have to be movie related.
I don't necessarily think so. I think it just is, how I was raised and the opportunities that I was given as just kind of being, excuse me, but like, I just was Jeff, just being a knucklehead. I didn't really think too much about anything, and I just kind of did whatever I felt just street racing, you know, at a young age, just doing stupid stuff and not thinking about it, and then suffering the consequences, you know, riding, you know, street bikes, just doing that stuff. And that's kind of my influences of what like my passions and stuff are, racing motocross and swimming and doing fun things like that just naturally, you know, cliff jumping, things like that just like gave me an easier time to deal with heights and stuff that just flow right into stunts and my career now.
For sure, and I think there's a message in there as well, and I don't know for sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of get the idea. You're just doing your own thing, not really worrying about what everyone else is doing, and just having fun in what you're doing, being Jef.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely my like upbringing, and now as a guy that's married and I have 2 kids, and I mean, that's my main priority and my main focus. Obviously, I have to provide and have to do that. So whatever that takes, I mean, that's what I'm going to do and make sure that they're good and they're taken care of. And I'm so blessed because I get to spend so much time at home and doing things, you know, with my family that a normal guy wouldn't, because he has to have, you know, a structured career, you know, structured timeline and things like that. So there's times when I'm home a lot, and then there's times when I'm away, which obviously kind of balance each other out. But I'm super thankful for the job that I have, and that kind of allows me to do the things that I do. But I mean, yeah, I have to care kind of what the trend and stuff is in stunts.
Now at this level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what stunts is. But like growing up, what I was saying is that I didn't really, like, the things that influenced me was whatever I was into. Like,
Nice.
you know, like it went from one thing to another. It was, you know, riding bikes to racing dirt bikes to then snowboarding, and then, you know, motorcycles, and then, you know, cars, and then motorcycles again, and girls, and, you know, it's like whatever I was into, that's kind of wherever my mind was. And showing off was always a huge thing. I always had to, you know, be the funny guy or you know, whatever, to have the attention. So it's like that's just who I was. But now it's like, now I'm kind of way more grounded, and I focus on obviously whatever I need to do to get the job done to continue, you know, my career and provide.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about next, that you've been really focusing on your driving and your car work, and that's something that can kind of give you also a lot of longevity.
Yeah. Well, as a stunt guy, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I take pretty much any job, just obviously depending upon the production and
Sure.
whatever, you know, logistical stuff. But like my heart and soul has always been, I mean, from the time I was a kid, I've been driving, and you know, motorcycles and driving are my 2 favorite things, you know, obviously in snowboarding and stuff like that, water work. I love all that stuff. Like, that's just me. So whenever those jobs come up, like, that's what but as a young guy, typically young guys never get driving jobs, like never get driving jobs, because the older guys have earned those spots. They're more comfortable. You know, you're out of the elements. You don't have to hit the ground. But the other side of it is there's a lot of pressure on you in a car to do the right thing, to hit your mark every time, and to get the job done. And so I want to set myself up for the future and the future of, you know, my family, and just have a really long career. In stunts, like, you have to pay to play. So if you want to be that guy, you know, if you want to be a really phenomenal, most desired martial artist, well, then you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to compete. You're going to, you know, make sure that other people want you, because a coordinator, a director wants whoever's the top guy that's doing it, because then they know that they can push their limits, they can get different shots than they even can imagine, because then they can pick the brain of that guy. And
Good point.
So I want to be the guy that, one, makes a coordinator feel 100% comfortable,
And make them look good too.
Yeah, make them look good, but also like make myself valued and continue to be valued. And so you know, not only with the whole Fast and Furious franchise and like Need for Speed and, you know, the Hot Wheels stuff that's going on, like there's so many other big elements that are going on that influence the, you know, feature world.
Sure.
I want to continue to make myself like top tier and always be on the cutting edge. So it's like equipment and making sure cars are set up properly, making sure that my equipment's perfect, making sure I know the different techniques of not just drifting or racing or hitting a line or whatever. So that's just what I'm into, and I put a lot of my money and a lot of my time into that, so then that way I can continue to evolve, not only just as a car guy, but as a guy that knows that world.
That makes sense now, because when I did, I know through Timmons, because he was helping you with your BMW, and I actually saw a picture of it, man. It looks badass.
Thank you.
So you're drifting, you're racing. I mean, you just, it just ties in really nice with the coordinator now, because now in terms of hitting your mark, you're at the point where you're finessing this car.
Yeah.
And you have some dough to kind of work it out. What direction outside of the stunt world are you going to focus on in the next year or so? Is it going to be more drifting, or is it going to be more racing?
Well,
or is it sort of concurrently?
Yeah, it's kind of combined. I mean, racing, it kind of happens inside of that. I mean, like, I know the lines, I know that stuff with racing, where to put my car. Yeah. Typically, I mean, what you see on camera, like, it looks really fast, but you're never really going that fast, like on camera, because it's just unsafe, and you don't need to, some shots you get that opportunity to go above the speed limit, but technically, logistically, you're not really able and allowed to do that a lot of times in a lot of different locations or whatever. So the thing is car control. I want to make sure that I can control any, like, I was called last year to go into Texas for a feature and to do driving. And the coordinator never knew me. He got referred to me, like, because I did this spot. The VW Target collaborated, and they did a spot in Target. And I had to drive a brand new car inside of a Target shopping mall that was actually functioning in Texas. And so one of the crew guys, who's actually stunts, but he was working as doing crew as well. I forgot what part of the other union that he's in or whatever, that was part of the crew. And he's just like, man, I saw this stunt guy that's right on the size that you need. That dude, he's driving this car, sliding this cart around inside of this really tight, normal Target with aisles and stuff that wasn't moved. And so he called me up, and he's like, hey, I got this show, and I need some driving, and come out. So he brought me out for the first spot, and then after he saw me drive, he's like, man, I got all these other driving spots. He's like, good
for you.
So it was just like, I had to drive a cop car, I have to drive an old military, like, MASH style Jeep, and slide it around, and I have 2 other actors and different weight, and I have to hit a mark, and a guy's falling out of the sky, and I have to be able to time, like, there's all these things. Camera,
ultimate arm.
Like,
sometimes not in that case.
Yeah, not in that shot. But, like, there was a lot of things that played into it that I had to be able to hit every time. And a couple times, stuff doesn't always work out, but you have to be able to generally do that, because people are, depending on you. So that's just the stuff that I want to always have in my bag and constantly be working on, because there's guys that are busy and that are, they'll go from one driving job to the next, and so they stay fresh and they stay relevant. But there's guys like me who, will get a couple driving jobs or 3 driving jobs or 4 or 5, or a dozen driving jobs a year, but they're not right after each other. So I constantly want to be doing it, so that when I get that next job,
you're on it,
that I'm the dude. So that guy's going to call me again, and then that 2 jobs that it went from now went to like 12 jobs or 6 jobs, whatever. I mean, so that I'm not going far and far and far and far and far, like the next, so just getting closer and closer to each job, like,
sure,
getting called more for that.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking before we turned on the mics, I mean, getting into that Furious crowd or Need for Speed crowd or whatever, it's like you have another group of people you can work with regularly, and obviously that would be sounds like a goal of yours.
Yeah, of course.
To provide for your family, maybe you're more local. All these things kind of tie in together. So, this has been a great interview, Jef. I appreciate you enlightening me and all this, but let's talk about the future.
Sure.
Where do you see the future of the stunts we're talking about, especially with bikes and cars and your background? Do you see things changing here in the next 3 to 5 years? Because you obviously have the superhero world, you have, the Need for Speed came out. I remember you saying you were a fan of the movie, so you have, you obviously have opinions.
I do have opinions.
Well, you can also back it up too.
Yeah. I don't really see things changing, I would say, in the feature film world, or even television or commercial. I mean, obviously there's always technology that changes, and so it makes things easier, but unless, like, specifically in California, I would say that like features are just hard to film here, obviously because of the amount of money it takes. So I would say the future is always going to be out of California for features, unless things change, unless, finances, like people are greedy. People are really greedy in California from everything, from the police department to how many that they require to, be on set, to their hourly rate, to the fire department, paramedics,
Just adds up.
everything, because you can go to Georgia or Detroit. You can shut down a whole freeway for $200, whatever. I mean, like, and they'll need 2 cops, one at one end, one at the other. Well, LA, you shut down a half of a street and they need 6 cops there, and they all want $20 an hour to sit there and smoke cigars and tell war stories. No offense to the LAPD or anything. I mean, I love them to death and I apprate them there. And when something goes wrong, but
it's
I
part
mean,
of the
like,
budget.
But hey, I mean, you got to be realistic. That's one side of it where I think it's going to take California to prosper. Again, in the feature realm, but I don't see things changing, like, film wise or anything along those lines. For a stunt person, obviously, I think it's going to continue to get harder and harder to stay local, stay home more. I mean, because I've been flown out more and more. So that's kind of where I see things going.
Well, it sort of ties into 2 parts there. I know that you've been doing a lot of work for Garrett Warren.
Yes.
And when we spoke, I think last year, you were in Hungary, weren't you?
What's that? Oh yeah, in Budapest.
Hungary.
Yeah, Budapest. Yeah.
What was that movie? Was that Spy?
So Spy's coming out June 5th. That was the Jason Statham, Melissa McCarthy movie, and I was very honored to do the car chase scenes and stuff in that movie, and helping. There was the time I doubled Melissa, just getting a shot, jumping the scooter into the concrete. But we did it into boxes, and then they just dropped the scooter in. But there was a little chase scene that they wanted a POV with the camera on the bike going through the whole construction crew and driving up this little ladder thing and stuff. So Garrett threw me in on that, and I was like, thank you.
That's nice, but it's kind of like saying you're getting your car stuff. Garrett's big time.
Yeah.
And you're overseas. It's just, those
Loved
are 2 or 3
it.
things that you just said. How long were you gone for?
I was gone for, I think it was a little over a month.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Like if you're gone for 4 or 5 months, it kind of hurts on the
family
thing.
side. But I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I'm working with some of the best dudes in the business, and doing car work and having fun and being able to go. We were off for like a week, and it was me, Richie Burden, Jeff Danoff, and we rented this car and we just went on this 6-country road trip and just went around and went all the way up to the Auschwitz concentration camp and saw some of, my wife's Jewish and stuff. And so we went and that was a huge deal. And so we went through that, and we all wanted to do that and saw that. So that was like amazing.
Sure.
And these are things that, like, being on a show, that provides you those opportunities to go and do things that you would never be able to do, or I would never envision myself going there just to do that stuff. And so and then just going through some of these crazy countries like Slovakia and Czech and just like seeing some of this stuff that was like, this is beautiful. I mean, this is God's creation that just is amazing. So I want to go back for sure.
I mean, it's kind of funny. I think there's a lot of different lures to this business, and that was one of them, is traveling overseas, and now you're being paid. You're over there doing things you want to be doing, seeing these things you generally can't see.
Right.
So, my hat goes off to you, because I know you've worked hard for it, and I know Garrett's hiring process, and he's actually helped me quite a bit in that, in terms of finding the right guys. And he told me, look, whoever you need, I'll get you. And it's kind of impressive. But to cap off this interview, is there anything you'd like to say at the end? Anything you'd like to share? That's something I didn't bring up.
Well, I mean, I can't thank, the people enough that have hired me, have given me a shot, that have allowed me to have fulfill the dream that I've always wanted to do, is have fun in life and be able to do what you love to do and get paid to do it, because it's never work. Like if you love what you do, then you're not working, because it's love. So I can't thank everybody enough. The coordinators that have hired me, I mean, everybody knows you know who you are. But I just can't thank everybody enough, and my family that supports me and allows me to pursue the dream that allows us to have fun and go to Disneyland.
Right on. Well, it was good having you, Jef. I appreciate
Thanks,
all your
Lawrence.
insight, and hope the audience enjoys as much as I did.
Yeah, Lawrence, thanks. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right, brother.